Welcome to Winds of Change. Our topic for today is resilience. What does it mean and how does it impact us and the people around us on a daily basis? We are joined today by two amazing guests, Matthew McCachran and Dr. John Izzo. Our first guest, Matthew McCachran, has over 25 years of experience working with organizations and helping leaders to lead themselves and others to be their best. He is an experienced organizational development consultant, engaging keynote speaker, and professional leadership coach. He has a passionate belief that when we tap into things we care most deeply about, we unleash enormous potential, motivation, and personal resilience. Later in the show, we will be joined by Dr. John Izzo, who is an author, leader, and inspiring speaker with over 19 years of experience working in a wide variety of corporate settings. His clients include nonprofit organizations, Fortune 500 companies, healthcare organizations, and mid-sized companies. Over the last 2 decades, Dr. Izzo has married his first career as a minister with his second as a management and leadership consultant to help leaders create corporations and organizations where values and purpose are the foundations for success. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Thank you.
Matthew, tell me a little bit about your background on resilience and why do you do the work that you do?
Well, one, I think just living life, over years, you have to be resilient in some way to make it through life. It has all its challenges. So I tend to look back a lot on my past life and what helped me get through.
Okay.
And I think what I love most about resilience or the topic is there's so much more for me to learn. And I guess I have this passionate belief that there's so much joy to be had in life, whether we're working in organizations or in life, so yeah.
Matthew, why the interest in resilience of all things in the world? Like, what drives your interest in resilience?
I think a huge value of mine is hope. Like, I just want people to have hope.
Okay.
And I know things show up in life that are challenging and it can grind us in or make us feel like we don't have a sense of hope. So one for me is giving people the sense of hope that they can get some kind of joy out of life and do what they love to do the most.
Okay.
The other is I think there's some knowledge and some skills that if we knew them, we could have more resilience in life.
Okay.
And then I think the other is what helps our motivation to actually kind of want to move to make those changes to help ourselves be more resilient. So I think those are some things that come up for me.
Okay. Now, Matthew, what is resilience? Let's start off with that.
I don't know. No. Okay. I think, I've read some definitions both in the dictionary and online. And for example, in the dictionary, it talks about an object's ability to return to its original shape, once that. But I think more for me when it comes to the human is what's our ability to kind of thrive and mature, like actually learn and get more competent in living day to day, even when we're going through adversity. Or challenging times. So for me, and a key word there is not just survive, but thrive.
Okay.
And I guess one more thing that comes up for me there is have some fun along the way.
Of course.
Because I think sometimes in life, being furrow-browed and disciplined and working is important. It gets us through. But also, am I having fun along the way? I think that's really important. So.
Matthew, is there an example of resilient, like a time where you can think about a time where you were resilient or somebody were resilient, just so that we can better understand what that behavior looks like if you are a resilient person?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you say this, I got a friend. It's always someone else, right?
Of course.
His name's Hugh Culver. He lives in Kelowna, and he's one of those guys that you just think, the guy is just born resilient. He's always got a great attitude no matter what's going on.
Okay.
And so there's a temptation to think, well, he's different than me, or he doesn't have any troubles in life.
Yeah.
But of course he does. He's got his own business. He might be having a home where the renter's not paying, or something goes wrong, and he's got 2 kids, and he's got to balance all the same things that we all do.
Okay.
And yet when you ask him how's it going, he says great, and he means it.
Okay.
So that to me is part of when I think of resilience. It's the ability to kind of deal with the same challenges that we all deal with, whether it's a challenging job, getting kids around to all their different sports, having a disagreement with a friend, making challenging decisions. You know, should I leave my career? Should I start a new one? Should I go to school, get my
Yeah.
master's or not? You know,
Yes.
do I go out of the career I've always known into the film industry? Those kinds of things. What gives us the resourcefulness to think, well, how can I do that?
Of
And then the
course.
motivation to go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Is that answer
Yeah,
your
that's
question?
that perfectly. Now, in there I heard about optimism. So now, naturally, we hear that there's some. Well, we hear all the time that there's people that are pessimistic and people that are optimistic. Does resilience have to do with optimism? Like, is that do they mean the same thing? Are they different, or are optimistic people naturally resilient? How does that work?
So my thought on that is two things, and I love that you brought that up, because there's a guy named Seligman, Dr. Martin Seligman, did a bunch of work around optimism, and he wrote a book called Learned Optimism.
Okay.
And in it, he recounts some of his studies that actually started out with dogs, you know,
Okay.
in boxes, and I think he was studying operant conditioning.
Okay.
But what he found with his research on dogs, what he found was dogs could learn to become pessimistic.
Really?
Yeah, so what would happen is he'd put him in this box, he'd put a low electrical current in the box, the dog would jump out of the box, great, solved the problem. Then he
Okay.
took another group of dogs, put a low electrical current in the box, the dog jumped into the other side where it was electric too,
Yeah.
and then they would get irritated by that, jump back, get irritated by that, jump back, and eventually give up.
Okay.
Then you'd put that same dog in a new situation with a problem, and the dog wouldn't try to solve the problem.
Okay.
The dog was already pessimistic about the new challenge.
Intriguing.
So, as you can imagine, people got interested in that. He shifted his work over to humans. And what he found was some people were more naturally optimistic and some people were more naturally pessimistic. But the best thing about his book is you can learn to be optimistic by practicing some of these skills, or like I said, my friend Hugh, that
Yes.
just seem to naturally be that way. Yeah.
It seems like it requires a lot of courage as well. It seems like it's because if you go through a lot of things that are bothering, or as you said, you know, the renters aren't working out, or you've got so much to do, it seems like resilience has a lot to do with courage as well, and just the courage to face life, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Courage is a great word, and what comes up for me there is, and by the way, I plagiarize from all these different people I've read, listened to, etc.
Of course.
So one thing I've heard Anthony Robbins say, you know, author of Awaken the Giant Within,
Yeah.
and many others, is success leaves clues. So I think a
Okay.
lot of times in our own life we can look back to say, well, what are some challenges I got through that I didn't think I'd get through? What did I do then that helped me get through?
Okay.
And by the way, this can be the smallest thing, you know. So that's one. To have the courage can often come from looking back and saying, well, what helped me in the past? Another thing that comes up for me is, and I believe, like, to the extent I have the opportunity to practice my values, the things that I care most about in life, I'm going to be experiencing my life as more meaningful
Okay.
or joyful. And a colleague and a mentor of mine, a guy named Scott Bristol from Santa Cruz, has done his life's work around values, you know?
Okay.
And his thing is, if we can get more clear on what our values are, for example, I was saying to you before the show,
Yeah.
you've got this passion around curiosity.
Of course.
And so to the extent you get to practice your curiosity every day, you're going to be more vibrant and have
True
a sense of joy. So the example I sometimes use in organizations, and I hope I don't offend anyone, is if I loved people and I really liked to be around people, and my job was being downstairs in the basement coding computers day in and day out all by myself.
Of course.
At some point my light is going to go out, you know, because I can do it, but day to day I need to reconnect with what I care most about.
True enough.
So to the extent I can practice that, I'm going to have more resilience or more joy.
And we come back to what you said earlier about survival versus thrival. Like when I look within my work experience, I always used to think, am I surviving in my work right now, or am I thriving? And it's taken me probably over 2 decades to get to an employer right now where, and you've hit the nail on the head with one of my values is curiosity. And I work in an organization right now that really supports that. And